The sleek Venusian spaceship slipped quietly into Earth's atmosphere, cloaking in gauge to avoid detection. At the controls, York clicked his mandibles nervously as the megacity of San Francisco zoomed into view. "No matter how many times I see it, their cities always amazes me," said Vincent. "Built right up to the shoreline, completely exposed. And no energy shields in sight," York buzzed. "These humans will construct metropolises right on fault lines and floodplains with no safeguards." "Primitive, but impressive in a way," Vincent mused. York's 4 eyes focused as he guided the ship towards the harbor. They were here to repo an extremely valuable rover called the Hawk XL from an alien debtor named Jimmy, who had defaulted on payments. Their boss Logan had warned them not to return empty-handed. Setting down in a secluded area near a public park, York and Vincent donned their human disguises, full body suits with realistic latex faces. Stepping outside, they strode casually through the bustling streets, scanning for anti-alien tech. Satisfied they were undetected, they brought up the tracer map on their wrists, showing the rover's location: a palatial seaside estate on the outskirts. Approaching by water, they spotted the sprawling mansion built right on the cliffs. "No defenses. We can go right in the front door," marveled Vincent. "I don't like it. Seems too easy," said York uneasily. But with night falling, they slipped up the shoreline and onto the manicured grounds. York easily disabled the simple alarm system and lock. "Child's play," he muttered. Moving through the opulent interior, they quickly located the garage, but a thorough search revealed no sign of the rover. Puzzled, they pulled out their scanners. "The tracer says it's here, somewhere below us," whispered Vincent. Exploring further, they discovered a hidden security panel with an access card slot. After hacking the panel, the door slid open, revealing an elevator. Descending, they found a vast subterranean bay housing exotic vehicles and ships. "This must be where the human keeps his most prized possessions," Vincent said. Consulting his scanner, York identified the Hawk XL in a far corner. Approaching cautiously, weapons drawn, they were relieved to find the rover unoccupied. York initiated the repo sequence by attaching a device to override the rover's systems. As it began powering up, red lights flashing, Vincent stood guard. "Let's get this over with and get out of here." York clicked nervously. He had an uneasy feeling ever since they had encountered such light security. Just then, they heard the hum of an energy weapon powering up behind them. York's blood ran cold as a stern voice ordered, "Step away from the vehicle." They turned to find a formidable-looking human brandishing a dangerous projectile weapon. It was Richard Johnson, the rover owner's father. York cursed himself for not anticipating this possibility. "I'm taking back what's mine," Richard growled. "You aliens think you can just take what you want from us. I won't let you threaten my son." York raised his limbs in surrender. "We mean no harm. We were just hired to do a job." He tried to reason with the man. "That rover is collateral for unpaid debts. Galactic trade laws allow us to collect." But Richard was unmoved. "I don't care about your laws. Nobody takes from my family." He motioned with the gun. "Now get in the rover. We're going on a little ride." York and Vincent exchanged worried looks. Neither wanted to imagine what this fiercely protective human had in mind. But with Richard's gun aimed at them unwaveringly, they knew they had no choice but to comply. York and Vincent cautiously got into the rover under Richard's watchful eye. Despite their extraterrestrial strength, they knew human projectile weapons could injure or even kill them at this range. "Strap in," Richard ordered, taking the driver's seat but keeping his gun trained on them. As they pulled out of the hidden bay onto a long tunnel, York's mind raced trying to find a non-violent solution. "I understand you want to protect your son," he said gently. "Let's talk this over. Perhaps we can come to an arrangement." But Richard just frowned and hit the throttle, speeding up dangerously fast as they shot out a concealed exit onto open roads. They were now racing at breakneck speed through the human metropolis. "Where are you taking us?" Vincent asked nervously, but Richard remained stone-faced. Weaving recklessly in and out of traffic, Richard drove with expert precision, clearly honed from years of experience. York was impressed despite their predicament. This human clearly had some serious piloting skills. As they blew through intersections and squeezed through narrow gaps between vehicles, York gripped his seat, mandibles quivering. "Please, reconsider this course of action. Someone could get hurt." "That's the idea," Richard growled in response. Suddenly, they veered onto a straightaway leading directly towards a towering skyscraper. York's blood ran cold as he realized Richard's plan. He was going to crash the rover into the building on purpose. "Scan the tower quickly," he shouted at Vincent. To his dismay, his partner responded, "It's owned by Logan Corp. This is Logan's headquarters." York's mind flashed back to all the warnings their boss Logan had given about ruthless retaliation against failure. And here they were, about to aid a vengeful human crashing an expensive rover into Logan's stronghold. "Brace for impact!" Richard yelled as the tower loomed before them. York had seconds to lament their predicament before the rover smashed through the glass facade in a deafening crunch of metal and shattering glass. The rover ground to a halt halfway lodged into the skyscraper. Vincent and York emerged shaken but unharmed thanks to their reinforced exoskeletons. Around them, chaos erupted as human first responders rushed onto the scene. Through the smoke, they saw Richard forcefully exit the rover and stride towards a cowering alien figure, none other than Logan himself. Richard pressed the gun right to Logan's head as he begged for mercy. "Stay away from me and my family," Richard spat. "This is your only warning." Keeping the gun trained on Logan, Richard backed away and disappeared into the confusion. "We've got to get out of here," urged Vincent. York nodded and they slipped away just as authorities secured the area. Safely in a secluded alley, they caught their breath. "That human is insane," Vincent exclaimed. "Insane. But it seems his reckless plan worked," York replied. "I have a feeling Logan will think twice before threatening Richard's son again after this." One thing was certain. Their mission to safely repo the rover had gone horribly wrong. These humans were more primitive yet dangerously unpredictable than they had imagined. Back at their cloaked ship, York and Vincent argued over what to do next. "We should get out of here immediately," York insisted. "That insane human will likely come after us again." But Vincent wasn't convinced. "Did you see how fiercely Richard defended his son? There's more to these humans than we realized." York clicked his mandibles in frustration. "I know you find their primitive culture fascinating, but they're violent and irrational." Just then, an incoming transmission snapped them to attention. It was their boss, Logan, and he looked furious. "Explain yourselves," he demanded. "My building lies in ruins thanks to your incompetence." York and Vincent recounted the repo gone wrong and how Richard had forced them to crash into Logan's tower. Logan grew angrier as they described the intense confrontation with Richard. "I don't care about your excuses," Logan snapped. "I'm taking the loss of that rover and damage to my headquarters out of your pay. Consider yourselves on thin ice." The transmission ended abruptly. York buzzed worriedly. "You heard him. One more mistake and we're done. We get that rover back no matter what." But Vincent hesitated. "I still think we should try talking to Richard first. Make him see reason." York refused. "He's clearly unstable. We get the rover by any means necessary." He laid out a plan to ambush Richard and forcibly take back the vehicle. Vincent pushed back. "If we act rashly, it will only confirm the worst human stereotypes about aliens. Let me try diplomacy first before we resort to violence." York reluctantly agreed to Vincent's plan as the better of bad options. They set out to find Richard, tracing him to a seedy human drinking establishment known as a bar. Slipping inside unnoticed, they spotted Richard brooding in a corner. Vincent approached while York watched his back closely. But to their surprise, Richard seemed to have already calmed down from his earlier rage. "Come to finish the job?" he asked bitterly. Vincent raised his limbs appeasingly. "We only want to talk. May we sit?" Richard waved them over cautiously. Vincent laid out their predicament with Logan as diplomatically as he could. "I'm sorry we've gotten off to such a poor start," Vincent said gently. "Help us understand why you were willing to take such extreme risks for your son." Richard looked thoughtful. He took a long swig from his glass before beginning his story. "You aliens may find us primitive, but family is sacred." Richard went on to explain his past working for Logan and the ruthless threats that followed when their partnership ended bitterly. York listened with fascination as Richard provided a whole new perspective on humans they had never considered. By the end, even he had to admit they may have misjudged this intriguing species. As closing time neared, Richard finished recounting the complex history between him and his former boss, Logan. So you see, I had no choice but to take drastic measures," Richard concluded, staring into his empty glass. York and Vincent sat in thoughtful silence, processing everything they had learned. This human's devotion to family had driven him to commit extreme acts in their defense. It was a perspective their species lacked. "I think we understand each other better now," Vincent finally said. "Perhaps we can find a mutually beneficial resolution." Richard raised an eyebrow. "What did you have in mind?" "We all want Logan off our backs," Vincent explained. "If we work together, maybe we can find leverage to get him to back off for good." York nodded, impressed by Vincent's problem-solving skills. Even Richard seemed intrigued. "All right, I'm listening," he said. They bent their heads together, speaking in hushed tones to formulate a plan. There were considerable risks, but also a chance to expose Logan's corruption if they could access his private records. As the bar closed, they set off into the night. Approaching Logan's tower, they split up. Richard created a distraction at the front entrance, while York and Vincent stealthily infiltrated via the cratered side. Slipping unseen past patrolling guards, they made their way up service stairwells to Logan's executive levels. Richard had provided his former keycard and security codes. Reaching Logan's office undetected, they accessed his networked systems. "This tech is archaic, no challenge for us," York buzzed with satisfaction as he easily overrode encryption protocols. They soon uncovered a trove of incriminating files, records of blackmail, bribery, intimidation. "This evidence could ruin Logan," Vincent said. They transmitted copies back to their home planet to expose his misdeeds. Just then, alarms blared throughout the building. Richard's distraction had worked. "Let's move!" York yelled, leading them back towards the damaged section. Reaching the cratered opening, they rappelled down just as security forces streamed into the office behind them. At the bottom, Richard pulled up in a stolen vehicle. "Hurry, before they shut down the perimeter!" Peeling away, they made it safely out of range before the area locked down completely. Catching their breath in an abandoned warehouse, they congratulated each other on perfectly executing their risky plan. "With the evidence we transmitted, Logan will become a pariah," York clicked excitedly. Richard grinned. "He's finally getting what's due." Vincent nodded in satisfaction. "Our two species overcame differences and worked together. Perhaps we can build greater trust and cooperation going forward." They had dismantled a corrupt regime, formed an unlikely alliance, and gained new respect for each other. York pondered just how much more they could accomplish side by side. The humans were still primitive, but their tenacity and loyalty intrigued him. "Let's get out of here and celebrate," Richard suggested, powering up the vehicle. There was more to learn about these fascinating beings and many more adventures to come. With the evidence now public, Logan found himself ruined and on the run from authorities. Meanwhile, Richard, York, and Vincent laid low for a while to let the chaos subside. They met up a few weeks later at Richard's seaside estate. "It's over. Logan's as good as finished," Richard confirmed with satisfaction. "I can't thank you enough for the risk you took helping me expose him." "In the process, we learned much about each other," mused York. "Our differences are substantial, yet we overcame them for the greater good." Vincent nodded. Now that Logan is no longer a threat, I hope our newfound cooperation continues. They stood together, looking out over the ocean as the sun set, contemplating all they had been through. An unlikely yet effective team, human and aliens alike. Eventually, Richard turned to them. With your help, my son Jimmy's debt is erased. Let me repay you by assisting with your operations here. My knowledge and skills could prove useful. York and Vincent readily agreed. Richard's insights into human nature would make him an invaluable ally during their time on Earth. As darkness fell, they made preparations to depart this fascinating planet. York was ready to get back to familiar territory, but Vincent seemed hesitant. Noticing his hesitation, York prodded, "What is it, my friend?" Vincent clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. The more I learn of these humans, the more I wish to stay. There is so much complexity still to uncover. Richard clapped his shoulder. You're welcome here. Stay, get to know us. It will help build greater understanding between our kinds. York would miss his partner, but understood Vincent's desire to immerse himself in human culture. They agreed Vincent would stay with Richard as an emissary. I hope you find what you seek, my friend, York said warmly as they embraced. Know that you will always have a place among the stars when you are ready to return. Boarding his ship, York took one last look at the coastal estate twinkling in the night. He felt a new hopefulness about the prospects for alliance between their civilizations. With individuals like Richard and Vincent as ambassadors, they could navigate misunderstandings and forge strong ties. There would be challenges ahead, but also great rewards. York launched smoothly into the stratosphere, reflecting on how this fateful repo mission had brought insight beyond expectations. Signs indicated Earth and his home planet were on the cusp of a new cooperative era that would enrich them both. The ship rose higher until the blue planet was just another sphere floating in the endless galaxy. But York knew he would be back again soon. There were many more human stories left to discover, and Vincent would surely have incredible tales to share. Their adventure here was just the beginning.